Spirit. Now then, today I'm going to read you a story, and then I think we might finish off with a couple of songs, maybe some sing-along ones of a certain nature. You know me. However, the story I'm going to tell first is one I've written. It is 15 minutes long, so just warning you. Yeah, I can make it longer if you want, but it's 15 minutes.
Most of it again, sir. Most of it again.
So I hope you just sort of enjoy the story. And in fact, it is called Charlie Chance Gambles with God, Death and the Devil. And it is my version of Philip Pullman's version of the Grimm's Brother version of the old tale of Hans the Gambler. If any of you know this, if any of you Grimm's Brother fans out there. Here we go. Once upon a time, there was a man called Charlie Chance. He was a gambler, and he'd made himself very wealthy. But then his luck turned, and he lost everything. At the point this story starts, we find him alone in the shell of his house, with no food or furniture, waiting for it to be repossessed the next day, and for him to be made homeless and destitute. All of a sudden, there is a knock on the door. Charlie opens it, and there are two men in white robes and big beards. The one on the left has a faint smile, and all the self-assured confidence of the chronically righteous. The silent one on the right is covered in tattoos, and looks like a cross between a hipster and a nightclub bouncer, which in a way he is, as we will find out. "Who the hell are you? The bailiffs aren't due until tomorrow lunchtime," said Charlie, whose accent you'll probably find changes throughout. "I am God, and this is St. Peter. We were in the area, and we needed a bed for the night." Don't ask me why he has an American accent, he just does. "All right, well, you can come in, but I've got nothing for you. I'm cleaned out." Now, God tells him not to worry, and he tells St. Peter to give Charlie £3, a little trick he picked up off the Queen. Never carry money yourself, and only get someone else to pay. And he sends Charlie off to the corner shop to get a loaf of bread, a knob of butter, and a small jar of pickled gherkins, because God's a bit partial to them. On the way, Charlie sees his old mates outside their favourite gambling den, and they call him over to join him in a hand of cards. He goes, "Nah, guys, sorry." His accent will change now. "Nah, guys, sorry, I can't. I'm on a mission from God." They all look round and wait for the Blues Brothers to appear, with the gospel choir and James Brown on a trampoline. But when that doesn't happen, they tell him to stop pulling their plonkers and join in a game of cards. Charlie still protests and explains what has happened to him, and about the £3 that God has given him. However, you see, gamblers can be pretty persistent, and they come up with a plan. Right, you tell him, you went to the shop, but you couldn't find the gherkins, only a large jar of pickled eggs, and you assumed that he wouldn't like that, and that means you have a quid in hand to lay a bet. And once you finish the game, you can go and get the bread and butter, and if he wants the change back, you just tell him it's a local shop, and they always charge more than the supermarkets, and he's not from round here, and he'll never guess. So inevitably, Charlie gives in, bets his quid, and promptly loses. Being a gambler, he plays another hand in order to try and win it back. He loses. Being a gambler, he only sees this as the green light to gamble the final quid, and this time, he loses. Meanwhile, God has got bored of waiting, which is kind of strange for an omni-chronological being, wouldn't you say? And he decides to see what's going on. And Charlie spots him and his henchman coming down the street, and he tries to pretend the money has accidentally rolled down the drain. God, of course, being omniscient, susses him out straight away, but decides to give him a second chance, and he orders St. Peter to give him another £3. Charlie pulls through this time, and that night they feast on gherkin sandwiches. After belching 3 times in a row, God asks for a drink from the cellar. "Look, I told you, it's all gone," said Charlie. And God says, "Look again." Charlie replies that there is no point, and anyway he hasn't got a candle or a light to see by. So God calls down the Holy Spirit and transfers some of that Empyrean flame onto Charlie's finger. Sure enough, he finds a barrel of the finest wine he's ever tasted down there, and not the communion stuff either. And some of you know what we're talking about. And that night, Charlie, God and St. Peter get royally pissed. Or should that be divinely pissed? I'm not quite sure. And they all pass out. Next morning, God grants Charlie 3 wishes as a reward for finally seeing the error of his ways. And he expects that, like every other bloke, Charlie will ask for, number 1, all his wealth back. Number 2, an assured place in heaven. And number 3, a fit 20-year-old wife who never gets a headache. Instead, Charlie asks for a pack of cards that can never be beaten and a pair of dice that always roll the correct number required, and a magical tree that grows every kind of fruit and exotic bird that you can imagine, with the caveat that whosoever shall climb up the tree cannot come down until Charlie says so. Now God, who is trying not to throw up after a rather heavy night, agrees, and he and St. Peter decide to ring for a taxi rather than catch the bus back to heaven, given the state of their livers. In a flash, literally, because he's a bit camp and theatrical like that, the Archangel Gabriel turns up to get them in a flaming chariot. God asks him to turn the flame down a little bit and leave off the celestial trumpets, as he's got a splitting headache. I'm sure some of you know what that feels this morning. As soon as he's waved them off, Charlie goes back to the gambling den and starts winning back his fortune. And by the end of the day, he's saved his house. Within a week, he's got back everything he ever lost. And within a year and 1 day, he is one of the richest men in the world. Aided, of course, by his unbeatable card and dice. God leans down over the walls of heaven, blows the clouds away, and says to St. Peter, "This guy's getting a bit too big for his boots. I think it's time to send the old man down to see him and make him an offer he can't refuse." So Death, who looks a bit like a cross between Keith Richards, Ronnie Wood and Wilco Johnson, after an afternoon being flayed alive in a Ramsay Bolton's dungeon, goes down to Charlie's house, which is now a mansion of course, and taps him on the shoulder, drawing a game of cards. "Time's up, loser," says Death. "Oi, who are you calling a loser? I've got a winning hand here," said Charlie, "and I'm not ready to go yet. I'm having too much fun beating those bastards. You'll have to wait." Death replies, "Fun? It's no fun if you're cheating. And anyway, everyone knows you can avoid me for a while, but you could never cheat Death." Charlie replies, "Oh aye, you want to bet?" Now Death, you see, of course, secured his position as the ultimate arbiter, even over the gods, let it be remembered, says, "All right then, you're on. I got all the time in the world, me, literally, and I can wait a while. You finish your hand." Charlie says, "Okay, but in the meantime, I'm feeling a little peckish. Can you go and grab me some pineapple, mango and goji berries off my magical tree, please? Oh, and go right up to the top and grab me a lark, a parrot and a peacock to roast. You see, if this is my last meal, we might as well go out in style." Death shrugs his shoulders and grins. And let's face it, he doesn't have a lot of options in the facial expressions stakes, does he? And he climbs Charlie's magical tree. He grabs everything, including a rather fetching hummingbird, which he intends to make immortal, well, as near as he can, and train to dive in and out of his eye sockets for fun. But then he finds he gets down to the lowest branch and he can go no further. He is stuck up the tree. You see, Charlie is not as daft as he looks. "Oi, you bastard, you tricked me," said Death. "Yep," said Charlie, "I told you I could cheat Death." And so he leaves him up there for 7 years. Now you see, of course, with Death out of action, apart from training his hummingbird, all kinds of things go wrong in the world, because nobody is dying. At first, everyone is pleasantly surprised at their newfound longevity, but then people realise that they can't be killed. So they get up to all kinds of mischief, because the ultimate danger isn't there any longer. The world becomes like a giant version of Jackass TV. But even that soon gets boring, because things start to get dark. Robbers and villains especially make everyone's life misery, accumulating wealth to sustain their immortal lives. The police are stretched to breaking point. Entire armies get reassigned to road traffic duties because they can't kill each other. And the grave diggers, the executioners and the undertakers all go out of business. God, once more, looks down over the ramparts of heaven, and he says, nah, man, nah, this has got to stop. Charlie's really taking the piss now. Go on, Pedro, we're going back down. I told you he changed his accent as well. God and St. Peter roll up to Charlie's castle, because even Charlie's had to take care to protect himself from the surrounding chaos, and God shouts out, are there any children present, by the way?
No.
Okay, right, fine. Oi, Charlie, you little fucker! Get your ass down here before I go all Old Testament on you! Charlie pops his head out the window and says, all right, you want a bet? So God says, listen, we'll do a deal. You let death back down out of that tree so we can get back to work and we'll forget all about this. You can keep your cards, you can keep your dice, you can keep your magic tree. And to show I'm genuine, I promise I won't kill you in revenge. Do you promise? I promise, I cross my heart and hope to die, said God. Oh, to die? For a supposedly immortal being, that's not exactly convincing, you know, God. And take your hands out of your robe, because I want to make sure you haven't got your fingers crossed. God, reluctantly and a bit sheepishly, uncrosses them before pulling back his sleeves. Okay, then I'll let him down. To tell the truth, all these bastards not dying is causing me problems. I can't even gamble in peace any longer, and no one's afraid of my armed guards. All right, Death, down you come. Death climbs down the tree, goes straight up to Charlie, and promptly strangles him to death. Oi! Says Charlie's ghost, rising from his mortal remains. God, you bastard! I thought you promised not to kill me. Well, Charlie, yes, I promised, it's true, but I never said that death wouldn't. God, Death and St. Peter call up the Archangel Gabriel and his taxi service again, and Gabe arrives this time wearing a blue and gold zoot suit and driving a Mexican lowrider, complete with go faster stripes, holy flames coming out of the exhaust and the celestial trumpets blaring the cucaracha in place of a car horn. After cruising around Charlie's inert body and shouting out insults, God and his gang bounce the Chevrolet up and down on its hydraulics a few times, burn some donuts into the ground and then shoot off back to heaven, whilst Death leans out of the window flicking the V's and dropping his pants. And they don't even offer Charlie a lift. Now Charlie's ghost thought, right, you bastards, I'll show you. And after weeks of climbing on his hands and knees up the stairway to heaven without even a hint of Led Zeppelin to spur him on, Charlie's ghost finally arrives at the pearly gates, where St. Peter looks him up and down, taking in the choice of clothes, clothing, hairstyles, social status and ethnicity, before saying, you're all taking the piss here, aren't you? What on earth makes you think we're letting you in heaven? Hey, boss, look who's just turned up. And God, St. Peter, and a few thousand of the people that Charlie had cheated throughout his life come up to the wrought iron gates and peer through and take the mickey out of him before getting bored and going back to choir practice again. St. Peter tells Charlie they've already rung down below and reserved him a place in the basement. And Charlie tries the old, but all my mates are inside line, but like any good bouncer, Sir Peter isn't having any of that. And he grabs hold of Charlie's ghost and gives him the bum rush down the stairway to heaven. And let's put it like this, he went down a damn sight quicker than he climbed up. With no other recourse, Charlie's ghost heads towards the gates of hell, which are of course always wide open. Come in, said the devil, come in. There is plenty of room here. Everyone welcome, nice and warm. Plenty of entertainment. And there's always boiling water on tap. Charlie goes in. He takes a look at the damned and their hideous tormentors, and he asks Satan, "Oi, how come all of your devils are so ugly?" "Oh, they're not all ugly," said the devil. "But I send all the handsome devils up to earth to spread mischief. It's much more fun that way. I'm sure some of you ladies know exactly what I mean." "Well," said Charlie. No, he didn't. He said, "Well," said Charlie, "since I'll be here for a while and I'm bored already, how do you fancy a game of cards? Do you fancy your chances on the roll of a dice or a bet or two?" And the devil replied, "You do know who I am, don't you?" said the devil. Oh yeah, you're saying you're too chicken then, Lucifer? You're scared I'm going to get one over you like your like I did your boss? Boss, who's boss? I'm my own boss down here, said the devil in a voice that sounded strangely like somebody out of Royston Vasey. You want to bet? Of course, by tea time, Charlie's ghost had not only won his freedom from hell, he'd also deprived the devil of all his ugly minions as well. With a smile and a wave and a smell you later, Lucifer, Charlie and his ugly hordes go straight to Herefordshire, where they instantly root up all the hot poles. They form a human ladder, a diabolic ladder up to heaven, and they use the poles to lever up the walls from the clouds of heaven so that Charlie can sneak in unnoticed. Once done, the ugly devils all jump back down again, and they set off around the world to pick fights with the handsome devils for always getting the best totty. But some of the ugly devils decided to remain in Herefordshire, getting pissed on Scrumpy, starting fights with the yokels, and mating with the local girls. And if you don't believe me, pop your head round the door of any pub from Brampton Bryan to Simmons Yacht, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Now, it didn't take God too long to realise that something was wrong in heaven. The good citizens of the celestial state were in uproar and dissolution, poverty and gambling were rife, and even the angels were forced to approach God to tell them that they'd lost their harps and halos in bets to Charlie's ghost. Right, that's it, said God. I've had just about fucking enough of that Charlie chance. So he calls up St. Peter, Death, and the Archangel Michael, who, as we all know, is a sort of divine enforcer, heaven's version of Jason Statham. And they grab hold of Charlie's ghost and hurl him right from the very top of the highest one of heaven's ramparts. And they hurl him down to earth. And God even got Zeus and Thor to chuck in some thunder and lightning for added effect. And pseudo-religious drama. Who says the gods don't help each other out? Charlie's soul hit the ground so hard and was pelted with so many lightning bolts that it split into millions of pieces, and they ricocheted off around the world and entered the hearts of all the gamblers and chancers wherever they live today in a kind of supersized Horcrux. So, you could say that Charlie Chance was probably the only man ever, not only to get the better of man, God, and the devil, but he even cheated death twice.